Hello, thanks so much for joining us for this week's episode of InFocus Recouched.
You're going to love the program we've got lined up for you today. An interview with a man who very nearly lost his life in a fuel explosion.
Wow.
But first up, a chat with one of the organisers of the Weet-Bix Kids Triathlon.
Let's take a look. Well, it's the largest kids triathlon series on the planet, and here with us is one of the coordinators of the Weet-Bix Kids Triathlon, Dave Martin. How are you?
Very well.
Do you still go by Smiley Martin?
Yes, I do.
I can see why.
It's lasted, thankfully.
Yeah. So, and I didn't realise, Dave, that you're involved in this Weet-Bix Kids Triathlon. How long have you been involved in that?
I'm now coordinating a sixth series, Trans-Tasman, so 6 years.
6 years, wow. So in Australia and New Zealand, does that involve a bit of flying over the ditch and back?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, both sides.
Yep. How's this year's series kicked off?
It's kicked off very well. We've been breaking records in the locations where we have the triathlon. And in New Zealand, we're about halfway through a series of 14. In Australia, we're about a third of the way through a series of 12 events. Yeah.
Okay, so that's what, 26?
26.
26 kids triathlon events every year. That's about one every fortnight, isn't it?
Well, if you average it out, but we do it in the summer, and they've just conducted about 5 events in 14 days in New Zealand.
Mm. And when you say record breaking, what do you mean by that?
Last year we put through about 36,500 kids.
Wow.
Through the series.
Okay.
And yes, it is the largest under 16s kids triathlon series in the world. Yeah.
Okay, so why? I'm trying to figure out the connection between selling breakfast cereal. You know, obviously, you know, Weet-Bix is, you know, Australia's favourite breakfast. Yes, thank you, Sanitarium. And a sporting event for kids. Where's the connection? How does that work?
Look, I think it comes back to Sanitarium's philosophy. And being owned by a church, I think the values of the church come through the company.
Because Sanitarium's owned by the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
It is, yes. And, you know, it recognises the infinite value of every human being. And in Australia and New Zealand, we do have issues with kids' health. About 25% of kids are overweight or obese. Yeah. And that's a challenge. And
it's an epidemic, isn't it? Really?
It is an epidemic, yeah. And also there's mental health issues with kids that emerge. And so the staff in New Zealand about 22 years ago had a brilliant idea that they'd get kids involved in physical activity. Right. And they looked at triathlon and they thought, oh, here's a sport, swim, ride and run. Kids do that. Let's get kids off the couch and up and active again. And so they seeded this idea.
Wow, and obviously the management supported the idea, or?
Management supported it because it seemed to be part of the philosophy of the company to do this, not only to sell products for commercial gain, but also to do things that would improve the health and happiness in the community.
Well, and does it?
I believe so, yes. We just conducted a survey 4 months out from the completion of last year's series in Australia, and 94% of parents fed back, and this is a survey of about 1,600 parents, fed back that their kids had a real boost to their self-esteem. So we're helping them in terms of confidence, we're helping them to enjoy themselves being physically active.
And when you're out and about, you know, sort of on the ground during the events, do parents sort of chat to you about the impact on their kids, or is it all sort of too busy at the time?
Look, it's usually after the event. When they're at the event, they're so taken by what's happening to their child that they tend to be focused on their kids. And I get to chat to them a little bit. And around the finish line, you can see the pride in the parents' faces. But more importantly, when we hang this medal around, every child gets this medal, right? You're a champion.
Kids Triathlon Champion 2014 series.
Yeah.
Hey, I like this.
So there's no winners or losers in this.
Yeah.
And at school...
How do you mean? Does the first place winner not...
There's no first place.
Right.
There's a course that we set, you know, so kids will swim a distance and they'll ride and they'll run. And we set the course and we say, the challenge here is just to finish. Just complete what you set out to do.
And what percentage of kids do finish?
I would say it's close to 100%.
Wow.
Occasionally a child will feel ill and have to come out, but
Sure.
But look, even if they walk the run, we encourage them to do it.
Yep.
And just to finish.
It's a feeling of accomplishment.
It's
Wow.
a feeling of accomplishment. So, look, at school these days, I'm sure you understand, there's a lot of physical activities where there's first, second and third, and then there's all the also-rans. And so, you know, where's the incentive to just go out and try, which is what we emphasise, TRY-athlon, not TRI.
Yes, try it. Yeah, it's not bad spelling. It really means everyone has a try. Give it a try. Do your best.
That's it.
So it's not about winning or losing. It's about challenging yourself.
Correct.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's an awesome philosophy.
Yeah.
So I imagine an event like this, must take a fair bit of coordination. And as you're the coordinator. Is this a lot of people from Sanitarium sort of not making Weet-Bix in order to coordinate these events, or how does it work?
Well, we do have a big team to conduct these events. There's a lot of infrastructure around a triathlon. In fact, we get involved with road closures and so on in order to conduct the event.
So you need council permission, maybe a bit police involvement.
Yes.
Wow.
So we
Huge.
have those things to organise, and we have professional teams in Australia and New Zealand that do that. As far as the staff go, in the beginning, Sanitarium staff were out on the weekends getting this thing going. They were really, really involved, very deeply. But after a while, you're quite right, they had their regular jobs to attend to, so we didn't want to actually wear them out on the weekend because that's counterproductive. So what we've introduced is a professional way of running these events, but we still have the staff involved. So staff still volunteer, and they come out for the morning and help the kids in either write their number on their arm, or help them in transition, or welcome all the parents in and help them to know where to go. So the staff are still involved, and we also have community volunteers, quite a number of community volunteers.
Right, I was going to ask that. So if there's perhaps some of our viewers who are watching this and wondering, hey, could I be involved in this? And is there even an event happening in my area? How would they go about exploring that?
Well, they can go to the website, and it's try.weetbix.co.nz or try.weetbix.com.au, and just go to the Parents tab, and you'll see there a Volunteer tab, and you can find out about volunteering and apply that way. Yeah. Wow,
no, that's incredible. Look, it's an incredible concept, and it's an incredible event. And 22 years, just getting bigger every year, it's an amazing accomplishment.
I wondered if you'd be interested to see just what the kids wear. Isn't that a lovely little
nice
T-shirt for them?
Oh, it's great. Pity it's not in my size. You can see why he's called Smiley Martin, can't you?
Yeah, totally. You can't help but smile with him.
It's infectious, isn't it?
Yeah, and he's involved with such a great project.
And you know what, Dora? It just keeps getting bigger every year. I think it's fantastic, really.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, we're going to take a quick break now. Don't go away. We'll be back in a sec.
Planning your future can be a daunting task. What you want to do, who you want to be, and the road ahead can often be unpredictable. No one really knows what the future holds. Avondale. It's education designed for life.
We're going to start with some soybeans. Use some chickpeas, an onion, you have a teaspoon of salt, slice some tomatoes, slice some cucumber, some red onion just to give it a bit of freshness. So just make little falafels like this. They just smell amazing. Let's make our tahini dressing. Let's get in some tomatoes, cucumbers, some falafels. Drizzle some of this lovely dressing. All you need to do is roll it up and you've got a delicious lunch for your family.
Hi, welcome back. Now, this next interview is with someone whose story broke our hearts. But honestly, Ken, I don't think Lyndon Millist is interested in anyone feeling sorry for him.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. Let's take a look. It was last year in January that aircraft engineer Lyndon Millist was working on repairing an aircraft fuel tank when it exploded. Well, thanks be to God, he's here with us today and has survived. But look like you've been in the wars there, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. Yeah, we got ourselves tangled up in a jet fuel explosion, as you say, working on one of Adventist Aviation's turbine-powered aircraft up in Goroka, Papua New Guinea. I was working up there as the maintenance manager, looking after the maintenance on all the aircraft up there to keep them safe for the pilots as they fly around. So we'd defueled the aircraft the day before, so the fuel tank was empty, but in the process of preparing the surface of the tank to then apply the aerospace sealant, one of the tools I was using ignited some latent fumes in the fuel tank, and unfortunately myself and the aircraft got caught up in a pretty big jet fuel explosion. So
wow, the old fireball, eh?
Yes, it was, and unfortunately I've come away with 50% burns to my body. I was then flown down to Royal Brisbane Hospital, where I've been being treated since the accident, and yeah, on a journey of recovery and survival from that incident. So
what was it a matter of survival there at one stage? A bit sort of touch and go if you're going to make it, or?
Yeah, absolutely. It took 14 hours from the time the accident happened at about 10:30 in the morning up in Goroka in Papua New Guinea to when I got down to the Royal Brisbane Hospital in the very early hours of the next morning. So it was about 14 hours, so quite a critical time for a burns survivor to actually survive those first 14 hours. One of the problems or one of the risks is that that your windpipe can close up, and then of course you can't breathe. So it's very important to be intubated. They put a tube down your throat so that you can breathe, and that didn't happen until I was admitted into Royal Brisbane 14 hours later.
Oh, wow.
So yeah.
How much of all that do you remember? Were you conscious through that time, or?
I was sedated on the Medivac flights. It involved two flights to transfer me down to Brisbane. But I was quite conscious for all of it, and I do remember struggling to breathe when I was sitting there on the hospital bed in Goroka hours after the accident, just really struggling to breathe. So, and it wasn't until later that people have said, yeah, it's amazing that you survived that 14-hour transfer from Goroka to when you were intubated and put into the induced coma down in Brisbane, Royal Brisbane Hospital.
Cool. Well, some of our viewers must be wondering, so what's the mask of it? And you've also got your arms and legs. Was that some sort of compression? What's all that about?
Yeah, this is a special custom-made compression garment suit that's made for myself. The idea is to hold some surface tension on the skin as it heals, so that the skin heals up nice and smooth and flat again. Otherwise, the scarring or the healing process will take the path of least resistance, and it can get quite rough. And
end up with a lot of ridges and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's right. So by being diligent and wearing this compression suit, basically 22, 23 hours a day, it gives my skin the best chance of coming out with a good, nice texture and outcome. So it's applied to both the grafted skin, which is obviously 50%, which was burnt, as well as the donor sites, which is the good skin that they harvested off my body. So that's why I'm in a full suit.
So you've already had a few skin grafts. So it actually looks like you've been burnt to more than you have because it's covering skin grafts as well.
That's exactly right. So 50% was burnt, which has been grafted, and the other 50% of me, which is good. They've harvested that skin mostly off my torso and back, and my upper thighs, to then apply to the other parts of the body.
So pretty much where you were wearing clothes is where you weren't burnt.
Exactly.
And of course in PNG you'd be in a short sleeve shirt and shorts, and so all skin exposed skin copped it basically.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Boy.
So in our cotton shirt and heavy drill short uniforms that we have up there, that protected me, and it was the exposed arms and legs and the top of my head across my forehead that copped the worst of it. So yeah, even though my shirt did catch on fire, and I remember, you know, tearing that off as quick as I could, my torso was saved.
Yeah.
So a lot of my donor sites have come from my torso,
Wow.
front and back. So
Boy.
yeah.
Cool. I mean, I imagine you can't sort of keep this stuff on all the time. You need to wash and like check how things are going. How does it feel to look in the mirror? You know, when you take that that mask off, is that tough?
It certainly took a lot to get used to in the early days, coming to terms with how I looked. I mean, obviously, you know, after a burn, you look like you're very, very severely sunburnt, a little bit disfigured. You suddenly notice how many mirrors there are in a hospital or around the place, you know, when you don't want to look at yourself.
Yeah.
And maybe some of the viewers can identify with that. But yeah, so when we go in the lifts or in my room or in the gym or wherever I was being taken to in the hospital, there's always mirrors. And in the early days, I used to say to my physios, look, you know, just try and avoid the mirrors. I'm not ready to look at myself yet.
Yeah.
So it's funny, even now, like, obviously to me the world still looks the same, but sometimes I just walk past and I'm like, who's that funny guy in the mask there, you know, looking back at me, oh, that's me, you know, I have to be reminded sometimes.
Wow.
But no, look, everybody's very good and very accepting.
Yeah.
I've had very little negative comment or negative reaction.
People must be like giving you double takes and that sort of stuff if you're walking through the shops or whatever. But
Yeah, sometimes you see people having a bit of a second or third look, you know, and I just turn and smile at them. And the young children are the funniest, you know. They often, you know, they notice anything that's a little bit different or not quite normal, and they often are very curious and ask questions. And you see their parents, you know, shh, don't ask that, you know, go down the next aisle, you know. But
he's not a Mexican wrestler.
But I'm always keen to answer their questions and talk to the kids. And as soon as you answer the kids' questions, they're happy and you know, they're very accepting. So
Wow.
yeah.
I mean, this must have been tough for you. I mean, there you are in PNG, you know, devoting your life to mission aviation, because that's what Adventist Aviation Services does, who you work with. We had your dad here on this program a couple of weeks back. How have you made sense of that? You know, how God could allow, you know, an accident like this to happen to you when you're there, you know, devoting your life to His service. That sort of doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's a tough question. I was in my 9th year there at Adventist Aviation. Been up there a long time, and you know, glory to God, we didn't have a single accident or incident the whole time that we were up there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've been blessed with a lot of protection and safety up there for all that time. But yeah, it's a tough question. Some people really struggle with the why and the warehouse. I guess I'm not someone that tends to dwell too much on that. Particularly in the earlier days, it's such an intense journey, just keeping up with all the things that we need to with my rehab and recovery.
Yeah.
But as time's gone along and that has sort of relaxed a little, I've had a bit of time to sort of contemplate that. I think sometimes we give too much credit to God, and by that I mean we blame God for everything. Whether good things happen, bad things happen, it's God. God did this, God. We often forget that God has an enemy, as do we, and that is the devil. Yeah. And I don't believe God sends any tragedies into anyone's life of his own back. I believe it's just the fact that we have an enemy out there who's out to destroy and cause suffering and problems in our lives.
This planet's a battlefield. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
It's a battlefield. Yeah, exactly right. And in a battle, as we know, there's always casualties. It doesn't matter whether you're on, you know, this side or that side, the good side, the bad side, if there is such a thing. There's always going to be casualties, and particularly the closer anyone is to the front line of any battle, no matter what side you're on, there's going to be casualties, and people get caught in the crossfire. And so that's an explanation that I have for it.
Has your faith, you know, been a source of strength, like in this sort of in making sense of that, and in your recovery period?
I think the understanding that there is a God who cares and who loves us, and the understanding that there is a devil who is out to destroy and make our life a misery. I think knowing that is certainly very big. If I didn't know or understood so much about the fact that there's an enemy, I think I would have a lot more difficulty accepting, as you asked, you know, why did God let this happen? If only God's the one that's at work and in control in the world, then why the suffering? It doesn't make sense. But once we understand that there is a devil, then you know, that's one explanation. I'm not saying it's the only explanation, but it's what makes sense to me.
It's working for you right now, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, and equally with that, as humans, I believe we're all equal. The laws of physics, the laws of chemistry, the laws of cause and effect, They apply to us equally. It doesn't matter whether you're a good person or a bad person. You know, good things happen to bad people, bad things happen to good people,
Sure.
whatever. You know, like we're all in the same boat as far as that goes. We live in a world of cause and effect. So I guess those are my two perspectives. There's a human point of view, and then there's the spiritual point of view and understanding and faith that I have. You know.
So it's been just over a year since the accident now.
Yeah.
I mean, you're up and about, you're walking, you seem to have a lot of flexibility. Is the recovery, you know, heading in the right direction?
Yeah, we've had lots of goals along the way, which I've tasked for myself as well as my occupational therapists and physios and the doctors. And yeah, we're on track. We're achieving the goals that we've set and tasked ourselves to, and in some ways exceeding some. In some ways, we're behind a few others that are out of our control. But overall, yes, we're all quite happy and accepting of where we're at this stage of the journey. I had no idea how long a burns recovery and rehabilitation would take. So that's been a learning curve. But generally, a big burn of what I've suffered is generally a 2 to 3 year recovery on average. So we're coming close to the halfway mark now. Around about 14 months since the accident. Okay. So time goes very, very, very slow at the start, but as we continue to progress, it gets easier. The things that we need to keep up with as part of the rehabilitation tend to relax a little, and you know, suddenly here we are over a year later. You know, it's amazing.
So I understand you've been behind the wheel of a car, got back on the road. That was one of your milestones. But you're a pilot as well. What's the plan like with flying? You're planning to get back in the air?
Yeah, I got the opportunity to pass my occupational driving assessment back in January this year. That was one of our goals, and yes, I achieved that goal just within the 12-month mark. After that, my occupational therapist said, "Well, you know, what's your next goal, then, and what's next?" You know, and I said, "Well, I guess the next thing is to have a go at piloting an aircraft again, because I hold a commercial pilot licence as well." And she says, "Well, I'm not sure how I can really help you with that one," because she was able to tee up the driving assessment. But she says, "No, that's a good one. If you get the opportunity, go for it." So I had the opportunity of piloting 2 aircraft. I was given the opportunity with an instructor beside me in both those aircraft, and yeah, successfully took off and did a couple of circuits and landed those 2 aircraft by myself.
That would have been a bit of a buzz.
Yeah, it was a good feeling of satisfaction and accomplishment, and. It's kind of like starting from scratch again as a child. You don't know what you can do. You're sort of having to start from scratch and relearn all these things. And
it must be very, very humbling in a way too.
Oh, extremely humbling. You know, I started off from not being able to feed myself, not even being able to stand up by myself.
Goodness.
Not being able to shave, brush my teeth, just all the little things we take for granted. It was literally like being a 2-year-old again.
Man.
So that's where I started, you know, basically 12 months ago. And to be able to have the opportunity to fly an aircraft and do that successfully again was yeah, it's a surprise, and it continues to build confidence and gives me the motivation to keep working hard at my recovery, so that I can get back to doing, you know, all the things that I once used to before all this happened. So
one of the most incredible things about your story, I think, Lyndon, is that before the accident you were engaged to be married. Is that right? And I try to picture myself in that situation, being you know, on the verge of getting married, then something awful like this happens, and you think to yourself, you know, will things ever be the same again? Surely there must have been a temptation for you to say, out of concern for your fiancée, "Look, don't worry about it, Bree. You know, it's all right. You can, you know, this is your opportunity to escape. This is going to be too tough for you." Or for her indeed to decide that it was all suddenly a bit too hard. How did you manage to work that out? Because you ended up getting married, didn't you?
We did, yeah. So we were engaged about 4 months before the accident, and we were planning to get married about 8 months after the accident happened. And one of the two thoughts that came through my mind as soon as it happened, I thought, wow, this is really going to mess up our wedding plans. And the second thought was, I'm going to be one of those funny people that has to wear these crazy masks, because I've seen a few burns people having to wear these things. And those are the 2 thoughts that went through my mind straight away as soon as it happened when I was under the water.
Have any doubts that this relationship was going to stick together, or was there a period of uncertainty there?
I spoke to Bree when I was in the Goroka Hospital. My dad rang her up on the phone, and I could hear her talking to me, and I did sort of say, you know, I love love you, and I'll see you later. And you know, a month later I did. She was visiting me before that, obviously, but I was in a coma for a month while she was coming and going from Perth to Brisbane visiting me. She was working over there still. The story she tells me is that it never entered her mind that she wouldn't you know, continue to stay with me and be by my side, and I'm very, very grateful for that.
Yeah.
You know, I'd often say to her, you know, well, Bree, you know, what a way to start out life, you know, like we're engaged and, you know, we'll get married at some point.
Yeah. Heck of a honeymoon year, eh?
Yeah, I said, what a way to start out life, Bree. And she says, well, it can only get better from here, Lynn. And, you know, that was her response, and I'll always remember that. And that was very encouraging and very empowering, of course.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it was a big motivation to get better again as quick as I could, to work hard at my rehab, to work hard at all the self-care that I could, so that, you know, I ended up with a good result, not only for myself but for Bree and all our extended family as well, of course.
That's incredible. So she stuck by you, you've stuck by her, and sounds like, you know, God's been sticking by both of you, really.
Yeah, it's just so critical that we have the support of our partners if we're in that position, or family members, friends, and the importance of church. That's one thing I really learnt, the importance of church and community. The support that myself and Bree have received has really been encouraging, and it keeps us accountable to continue to keep working hard at our recovery.
Wow.
And to continue to give back and share to others, you know, that are in need and going through tough times. Yeah.
Boy, I find myself saying, you know, thinking, wow, God's really been blessing you, and it seems an ironic thing to say, but just considering your attitude and, you know, the way you're looking forward, it really seems that He has been. So, you know, just hope He keeps blessing you. Thanks so much for your time today, Lyndon. Really appreciate it, and, you know, thanks for sharing your story.
No worries, Kent. Thank you.
Boy, that's a tough way to begin a marriage.
Yeah.
I'm just so impressed by how they've stuck together through all of that.
Yeah, and by all accounts, Lyndon's recovery has been progressing by leaps and bounds since then.
Oh, good.
I actually saw some video a year or so ago of him flying a plane for the first time.
Oh, cool.
I understand he's been driving too, and you'll love this, Dora.
Yep.
Let me show you. They finally had the church wedding part of their ceremony, and look at this. You know, which one of these guys is Lyndon? You can't tell,
wow,
can you? And yeah, here he is also with Bree, you know, his missus. So
awesome.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Really good. You've got to love a happy ending. We should finish the show with a wedding every time. Hey, thanks for your company. Have an awesome week. We'll see you next time.
God bless.